All right, let's dive into one of the most epic origin stories of all time. We're going to explore how, according to this narrative, the entire world, with all its different nations and peoples, sprang from the family of just one man, Noah. I mean, just think about that question for a second. The story goes that a massive flood essentially hits the reset button on humanity. All that's left is Noah and his family. So, how do we get from just 8 people on a boat to the billions of us living all over the globe today? Well, this text lays it all out as the origin story for every single nation on Earth. So, the key players in this new, reborn world are Noah's 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. These 3 guys, along with their wives, are presented as the literal ancestors of all humanity. Every tribe, every kingdom, every empire. The idea is you can trace their lineage right back to one of these 3 brothers. And what's really fascinating is how their very names seem to hint at their destiny. Shem, meaning fame or name, and his line would become renowned. Ham, meaning hot, gets associated with the warmer climates of Africa. And Japheth, whose name means may he have space, well, that's a pretty big clue that his descendants are going to spread out. But it wasn't just their names that sealed their fate. Not at all. There was one single, incredibly dramatic family incident that would trigger a chain reaction, a series of blessings and a curse that would echo down through thousands of years of human history. So here's how it all went down. After the flood, Noah planted a vineyard, and, well, he got drunk. While he was passed out, his son Ham saw him uncovered. But instead of showing respect, Ham went and gossiped about it to his brothers. Shem and Japheth, on the other hand, did the honorable thing. They walked backward and covered their father without looking. When Noah woke up and realized what happened, he delivered a powerful prophetic curse, not on Ham, but very specifically on Ham's son, Canaan. And then he gave these incredible blessings to Shem and Japheth. That one moment, right there, created 3 totally different destinies for their descendants. Okay, so let's start with Shem. His line is the one that gets the main blessing. He's front and center in the whole biblical story as the ancestor of the Semitic peoples. And his family tree is packed with some of the heaviest hitters of the ancient world. We're talking about the Israelites, of course, but also the mighty Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Elamites, who are the foundation of the Persian Empire. You get the picture. This was a hugely significant line, right in the heart of Mesopotamia and the Middle East. All right, next up is Ham. And his story, well, it's more complicated. It's forever colored by that moment of dishonor toward his father. Now, his descendants would go on to build incredible civilizations, but his legacy is always tied to that curse that came out of it. And this is a really crucial point. The curse was aimed directly at Canaan, Ham's 4th son. The prophecy was interpreted to mean that Canaan's descendants would end up serving the descendants of Shem and Japheth. And this was seen as being fulfilled, for instance, when Israel later conquered the land of Canaan. So where did Ham's descendants settle? Primarily in Africa and the Levant. We're talking about the amazing civilizations of Egypt and Ethiopia, plus the peoples of Libya. And, of course, this lineage includes the Canaanites, the very people living in the land that would eventually become the promised land for Israel. And that brings us to the 3rd brother, Japheth. Remember his name? May he have space. Well, his blessing from Noah was exactly that, a future of massive expansion and influence across the globe. This blessing is really a 2-part deal. The first part is pretty straightforward, a promise of physical expansion, that his people would spread out far and wide. The second part, though, let him dwell in the tents of Shem, has often been seen as a prophecy that Japheth's descendants would one day get to share in the spiritual blessings that were promised to Shem's line. And expand they did. Japheth is traditionally seen as the forefather of many of the Indo-European nations. His descendants spread all across the coastlands of the Mediterranean, pushing into Europe and parts of Asia, eventually forming peoples like the Greeks, the Romans, the Persians, and the ancestors of many of today's European nations. Okay, so we've laid out the who and the where, basically the family tree of the entire world. But this story is so much more than just a genealogy list. It's presented as a kind of theological blueprint, explaining how a divine plan is unfolding throughout all of human history. Shem's line is the line of the covenant. It's through his descendants, and specifically through Abraham, that the story of redemption really gets going. He's the channel for that divine blessing and the promise of a future Messiah. Ham's line, on the other hand, comes to represent the consequences of sin and disrespect. That curse on Canaan is a really stark reminder that our actions can have generational impact. But, and this is a big but, it's not a story without hope. It's shown that grace is still available to Ham's descendants, hinting that restoration is always possible. And finally, we have Japheth. His line represents the promise of inclusion. That blessing to dwell in the tents of Shem is seen as a foreshadowing of a time when everyone else, all the other nations, the Gentiles, would be invited to share in the salvation that was promised through Shem's line. It points to a plan for everyone.
So what does this ancient story have to do with us, right here, right now? Well, there are at least 3 massive takeaways. First, unity. If we all come from one family, then everybody, everywhere, shares a common origin and inherent dignity. Second, consequences. It's a powerful lesson that the choices we make, good or bad, can ripple out way beyond our own lives. And third, purpose. It's a grand story that suggests salvation isn't just for one group, but is meant for all people from every corner of the world.
It all started so simply. Just 3 sons, 3 distinct paths set in motion right after a world-changing flood. And from that one single family, a whole world was reborn, leading to the nearly 8 billion of us who call this planet home today. It's a staggering thought, really. Which leaves us with one final, and I think crucial question. If every nation, every culture, and every single person on Earth is ultimately part of the same extended family tree, how should that change the way we see the world? And maybe more importantly, how should it change the way we see each other?